we should get that for Battle Day.
Oh, we're going live.
Oh, the bells. I love the bells.
The Senate will please come to order. Please join me in a moment of silence today in lieu of a devotional. Thank you. We'll begin this afternoon with announcements. Are there any announcements? The senator from Caledonia is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm involved in another matter this afternoon which prevents me from continuing on the floor right now, but I wanted to jump in at this moment to make a point of personal privilege. Yesterday, in explaining my appearance before the Government Operations Committee in seeking an amendment on S15, I used the term cakewalk. Well, that word may seem neutral to some. I have learned that, in fact, it is something with very racist origins. What I knew when I said it is of no consequence. What is more important is that I know that now, and I know that it had an impact on my fellow colleagues. And for that, I am deeply sorry. But more than just sorry, I'm also committed to learning on my own the origins of our words, to not be defensive, to be accountable, and to do better. I will use this as a learning experience and would welcome anyone who may have been offended to personally contact me if they feel the need. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any other announcements this morning? This afternoon, excuse me. We have Senate bills for referral. Senate bills S48 and S124 being on the calendar for notice and affecting the expenditures of the state under Rule 31 are referred to the Committee on Appropriations. We have one Senate bill for introduction, S126, an act relating to the collection and recycling of electronic waste introduced by Senator Westman. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
S126, an act relating to the collection and recycling of electronic waste.
You've heard the first reading, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy. We have three House bills for reference. H133, an act relating to emergency relief from abuse orders and relinquishment of firearms, introduced in the House on January 26, 2021. Please listen to the first reading.
H133, an act relating to emergency relief from abuse orders and relinquishment of firearms.
You've heard the first reading, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Judiciary. H420, an act relating to miscellaneous agricultural subjects, introduced in the House on March 9th, 2021. Please listen to the first reading.
H420, an act relating to miscellaneous agricultural subjects.
You've heard the first reading, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Agriculture. And H421, an act relating to animal cruelty investigation, response, and training, introduced in the House on March 9th, 2021. Please listen to the first reading.
H421, an act relating to animal cruelty investigation, response, and training.
You've heard the first reading, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Agriculture. This brings us to the orders of the day. The senator from Windham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I do not see the reporter has she joined us? My apologies, Madam President. I believe the chair of government operations is now in the chamber.
Thank you. We have for third reading, S15, an act relating to correcting defective ballots. The chair recognizes the senator from Franklin excuse me, first we'll recognize the senator from Wyndham.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to request that we pass this until the next legislative day. We have an amendment that is currently being worked on.
Thank you, Senator. We have a request to move over S-115. Without objection, we'll now move over S-115.
Oops, Madam President,
The senator from Chittenden is recognized.
do you mean S-15?
Excuse me, S-15, yes. We will now move over S-15. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have on the calendar for third reading S-107. Third reading was ordered on March 16, 2021. Are there any amendments before third reading? And now listen to the third reading.
S-107, an act relating to confidential information concerning the initial arrest and charge of a juvenile.
The question now is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for the question? And if so, please unmute. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you've passed S-107. We have on the calendar for action S-115, a committee bill relating to making miscellaneous changes in education laws, which was introduced on March 10th, 2021. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
S-115, an act relating to making miscellaneous changes in education laws.
The senator from Chittenden, Senator Chittenden, is recognized for an explanation of the bill on behalf of the Committee on Education.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise today virtually to report on a Senate Education Miscellaneous Bill, and I'd like to start by thanking and recognizing the contributions of Senator Lyons, Senator Hardy, Senator Rahm, as well as our both past committee chair, as well as current chair, Senator Campion, for all of their hard work on the pieces of this miscellaneous bill. I also understand, to put this in context, that 80% of the bill before you today has already passed the Senate last session, but did not go through the House because of the pandemic. So for those returning senators, a lot of this should look familiar. There are 4 parts to this bill, one on libraries, cultural liaisons, wellness programs, and access to menstrual products in public schools. I will give the highlights and not go into great detail, but you can ask me any question, and I promise to find the answer for third reading at the end, of course. The first section on libraries has to do with forming a working group to study specific segments of the Vermont population, the role that libraries play in addressing community needs, such as emergency preparedness, public health, community identity, also the impact of COVID-19, the pandemic on libraries, and the overall status of Vermont libraries. It's also may study programmings, collections, facilities, technology, staffing to facilitate sharing. It's also at the discretion of the working group, they may look at study specific subjects set out in the subdivisions of the bill. This section also includes a variety of technical corrections. I won't go through all of them, but happy to answer questions if you have them. We took witnesses from the sponsor, Senator Ruth Hardy, Tucker Anderson, Jason Broughton, the state librarian, Bruce Post, the chair of board of libraries, Bryn Geffert, the dean of libraries at the University of Vermont, Thomas McMurdo, the assistant state librarian, Jeanette Schaefer, assistant state librarian, as well as Kevin Unrath, a librarian at the Pearson Library in Shelburne. The second section is on cultural liaisons. This is really enabling legislation. It provides language to, also there was a fiscal note on the first section, libraries. It carries with it, I won't speak for the Appropriations Committee, but a favorable report with the $4,000 to cover that. Great, so the cultural liaisons is enabling language, which the fiscal note did not have any assigned cost. If anything, this allows municipalities to save monies. It's allows for cultural liaisons to provide language and interpretation services to help facilitate educational and municipal services for limited English proficiency students and families. They also facilitate communication among school, municipal staff, students, families, and community organizations, and they directly assist in reconciling different cultural perspectives and understandings. These are things that are currently happening, but the language didn't have enough clarity regarding what's an educational expense and what a municipal service is. So this language attempts, and I believe it succeeds, attempts to get clarity to that, to allow for municipalities and school districts to coordinate these services, much in the way municipalities like my home community of South Burlington shares resources with our library, also with our athletic facilities, and so on. This language allows for the municipalities to work more closely with the schools while still tracking the different time expenses and expenditures related to these cultural liaisons. We took witnesses from the sponsor of the bill, Senator Keisha Ram, Jesse Baker, the city manager of Winooski, Vermont, Aaron McGuire, the director of equity and inclusion at the Essex Westford School District, Abir Al-Zubadi, I apologize if that's incorrect, a cultural liaison currently working in, I believe, Winooski, as well as James Demery, our legislative counsel. The last two sections somewhat came, I believe, from the same work, a lot led by, I understand, Senator Lyons. The first part has to do with wellness program, and it really just amends some of the language and statute to expand what a wellness program is beyond just nutrition and fitness, to include more comprehensive health education. So a more broad array, as I would expect all of us to agree that mental health demands more of our attention, and this language will help form policies that consider our students' minds, bodies, and spirits. This does require the Secretary of Education to supervise the preparation of appropriate wellness programs, and I recall from the testimony of the Agency of Education, they are supportive of this section of the bill. The last section has to do with requiring school districts and approved independent schools to make menstrual products available at no cost for each school within the district or under the jurisdiction of the board of the independent school in a majority of gender-neutral bathrooms and bathrooms designated for females. I believe there is going to be a slight amendment proposed to this from the sponsor of the bill, and I'll report on that, the vote by the committee, I guess, after the amendment. It does require the school districts and approved independent schools to bear the cost of supplying these products. And there was a fiscal note which estimated this statewide inside of the operating budgets of the schools to range, though it was not a hard and fast number for a variety of factors that are illustrated in the fiscal note, between $50,000 and $80,000. But that statewide and also is a soft number since many of these products are already being provided. The witnesses for this bill were Senator Ruth Hardy, the sponsor, Daniel French, Secretary of Agency of Education, Kara Casey, Director of Economic Development, Vermont Network Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, Sue Siglowski, apologies, Sue, if that's incorrectly pronounced, Executive Director of the Vermont School Boards Association, Jeff Fannin, Executive Director, NEA, Mill Moore, Executive Director of Vermont Independent Schools Association, as well as James Demery. This bill would take effect upon passage, except that school districts and approved independent schools shall comply with the requirements of Section 11, the menstrual products, for the 2022-2023 school year and thereafter. The bill passed the Senate Education Committee favorably with a 6-0-0 vote, and I encourage the full Senate to pass this education miscellaneous bill. Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Chittenden, Senator Baruth, is recognized for a report on the bill S-115 on behalf of the Committee on Appropriations.
Thank you, Madam President. Your Senate Appropriations Committee did look over this bill, and we looked particularly at two sections, those having to do with the libraries, because as is standard, there are per diems associated with them meeting. That cost is minimal at an estimated $16,000 to the Department of Libraries. And then the menstrual products section, which the reporter mentioned, the range of estimate there on the fiscal note is actually, at least the note I was provided, $50,000 to $60,000 annually. But as was noted, that would depend on the preparation or the supply schools already provide. There's another element, which is dispensers for such products.
It's favorable.
This particular language that you're looking at does not require dispensers. If they were to be used, there would be an additional cost. But again, it's hard to score that against the bill since that would be a decision on the part of the district. So in general, we found the cost to be minimal and well worth the goals of the bill. The vote out of appropriations was 7-0-0. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Addison, Senator Hardy, is recognized for the amendment.
Thank you, Madam President. The amendment can be found on page 31 of today's calendar. And I first want to start by saying thank you to our Committee on Education for taking up this bill and the many sections of it. I'm very pleased and grateful to the committee for carrying on the work that many of us started last session. The amendment is mostly a small technical amendment to the language in section 11, which is the section on menstrual products. It would strike the words "the embarrassment of," and this was a suggestion of our colleague from the senator from Chittenden, Senator Rahm, making sure that we didn't suggest that menstruation should be embarrassing or something to be ashamed of. So we took that wording out in the amendment, and then also make some grammatical corrections saying bathrooms designated for female students. Female is an adjective, so it modifies students. And then finally, makes the words generally used by students in any grades 5 through 12 rather than female students, because there are students who do not identify as female who do menstruate. So wanting to be clear that these products can be used by any student who menstruates. So that is the amendment, and I will leave it to my colleague from Chittenden to talk about the committee's vote. But again, thank you to the Committee on Education, and I hope you'll support this small amendment to this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Chittenden is recognized before we move to a vote on the amendment.
The committee considered the language in the amendment and voted favorably 5-0-1. One senator was not with us, was absent at the time.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate amend the bill as recommended by the senator from Addison? Are you ready for the question? So please unmute. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've amended the bill as recommended by the senator from Addison. The question now is, shall the bill be read the third time? Are you ready for the question? The senator from Windham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. May I inquire the reporter?
You may.
Thank you. Just a quick question on section 11. I'm wondering if you can let us know, Madam President, what was the nature of testimony that you took regarding currently, are menstrual products being paid for school by school or by district?
We have for this bill an explanation from the Committee on Education and also a report from the Committee on Appropriations. Does the senator have a preference?
I do not.
Okay. The senator from Chittenden, Senator Chittenden is recognized.
Thank you. Madam President, I want to answer precisely, so I'd love to bring that back for third reading if the interrogator would allow. But I would say what I recall of the fiscal note, and I can scan through now if you'd like me to do so, is it varies by municipality in that some use, I recall from some testimony that either teachers themselves are paying for it. Sometimes it's out of other funds for other purchased items. There didn't seem to be clarity in how these were being done statewide.
Thank you. I thank the reporter.
Senators are kindly reminded, if you're not answering questions or preparing to speak, to kindly mute yourselves. Thank you.
I thank the reporter. That was my point. I suspected that in the past it has been often paid for by by teachers and administrators and school nurses. And so I very much appreciate that the committee has continued this work, and I look forward to hearing more from the reporter at third reading. Thank you.
The question is, shall the bill be read the third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, please unmute. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of S 115. We have on the calendar for action S1, introduced on January 12th, 2021. It was referred to the Committee on Finance, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the bill be amended as appears on pages 431 to 433 of today's calendar, and that when so amended, the bill ought to pass. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
S1, an act relating to extending the baseload renewable power portfolio requirement.
The chair recognizes the senator from the great district of Orange, Senator McDonald, for a report of the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President, Madam President. May I speak to the bill as well as the amendment?
Without objection, you may.
President, last year we had a similar bill proposed. The purpose of the bill last year and the underlying bill today is to extend the license of the Reigate electric generating plant in Reigate, Vermont. The committee has recommended an amendment that is significantly different from last year's and the original bill that was submitted. You have before you, if you are looking at page 431 in today's calendar. The original bill is 6 pages long. The first 4.5 pages are straight out of statute, and the bill proposes to extend the license of the Reigate plant for 10 years. Unlike last year's bill, this S1 would add some additional improvements. It would call for some studies on how you might use heat at the plant more efficiently and how you might schedule its operations to be less expensive. Yet your Finance Committee has sought to amend the bill to extend the plant for 2 years rather than 10. So going now to the amendment, what has changed since last year? For one thing, the plant is under new ownership. Another is that the forest industry, which last year was having a difficult time from Vermont right across New Hampshire into Maine, is struggling even more than it did before. Reigate is an old plant. Reigate was designed as an experimental plant to see if it was economic to generate electricity. That was 30 years ago. Its license was extended 10 years ago and expires in about 1.5 years from now. The plant is inefficient. It takes 23% of the wood products that go in, make electricity, and the rest goes out as waste, hot air. The plant is no longer competitive. If we were going to buy base power, we would buy it at other sources. Even though the plant 10 years ago was upgraded to be less dirty, the upgrades still, it's not as, the power is dirtier than if we used other sources to purchase from, which would be much cheaper. Why does your Committee on Finance wish to extend the license for 2 years, as the amendment calls for? It's because there is new ownership and because our foresters, loggers, haulers are in deep financial problems. The market for chips has diminished to the point where we've been told that many providers for chips for this plant are selling them at cost or below cost. How much of the market does Rygate consume? By comparison, Montpelier, which has a heating plant with chips that would be heating the building we're usually in if we weren't on Zoom, and other buildings, takes about 1 to 2 truckloads a day of chips to operate. Heating plants run up to 70% efficiency. The Rygate plant is at 26% efficiency, 23% efficiency. Rygate takes 30 truckloads a day, which is substantially more. But in New Hampshire, where many of the mills and paper plants have shut down voluntarily, and recently another one burned and is not going to be rebuilt, the daily deliveries run in the several hundreds of truckloads a day. So there's a surplus of chips. And the reason that the Finance Committee wishes to continue for a couple years is to solve the following problem. The current subsidy paid for by ratepayers to operate the plant does not distinguish amongst or how the plant would purchase chips. And if we are going to help the foresters, the loggers, and the truckers here in Vermont with a Vermont subsidy paid for by Vermonters, we would like to see that the benefits of operating this plant are directed more at the people in this state who work in this industry and whose citizens are paying the freight to keep the plant open. So the amendment we have before us extends the plant for 2 years, which would mean that they do not have to come to a final decision for 3.5 years. And during those 2 years, it gives the new operators of the plant an opportunity to investigate and demonstrate some of the things that they have suggested might be improvements. They've looked at shrimp farming. They were prepared to look at how you could use the heat to heat dwellings, which is more efficient, but there are a few dwellings in the area. Greenhouses, perhaps. There's been testimony that perhaps the heat could be used in conjunction with the production of wood pellets, which is a growing industry. We thought it would be add to this that the new owners have bought several plants throughout New England, and their goal is to repurpose them to continue to use wood products and to do so more efficiently. If you read the press, they have like any new company, they have some successes and some things that aren't going well. But we think that they deserve an opportunity to make a case to keep Rygate open for longer than just 2 years. So the bill before us would extend the operation for 2 years. Under the current circumstances, wouldn't require any new hearings or new applications at the same rate that they've been subsidized for the last 10 years. And it would, in the bill, talks about getting a report from the owners and reports from our forest and parks personnel, environmental operators, on suggestions that might be useful to make the plant more efficient and make it operate for additional time. There's no requirement that any of these folks do it, but it certainly would be in the plant's interest to pursue many of the things that they have told us they would pursue in testimony before the committee. That is, in essence, what the change is: 2-year extension, which gives them 3.5 years to come up with proposals that would the legislature would approve. And they don't have to, but they would be wise to do so. In the absence of this amendment, the plant would be extended for 10 years. The new owners would have a 10-year contract and wouldn't have to make any changes. So we think this is prudent. We think it is targeted at Vermont ratepayers and the Vermonters who work in this industry, and fair to the new owners to give them an opportunity to present a case for a longer extension. There were 22 witnesses that spoke on this. I would be glad to read them aloud. The Finance Committee has worked on this bill with more witnesses and more time than any bill before the committee this session. And the vote out of Finance was 7-0-0 to keep the plant operating for 2 more years and to be open to the owners for changes. And if they were to come in and say and demonstrate to us that they think they've got something on the line and ready to go, and they need another year, another 6 months, I think the Finance Committee or any future Finance Committee or the Senate would say, hallelujah, we can find a way to make this work. And if they don't come in with anything, well, then the next legislature will decide what is the appropriate thing to do. That concludes my report. And unless senators would like to have a witness list read aloud.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Finance? The senator from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Or Madam President, may I inquire of the presenter of the bill?
You may.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is in relation to the health of the forest products industry. I know one of the issues there about closing the plant is how important it is that all the low-grade wood is used at the plant. I wondered if the committee, in discussing the bill, discussed any other measures or activities that the state could do to support this sector if the plant was to close and the chips couldn't go to the power plant. Did they talk about other things that the state could do to make other uses of that low-grade wood?
We had testimony about that the dilemma that the senator asks about. The problem is not just in Vermont, but it's in New Hampshire and Maine, that the market is becoming narrower and narrower, and we were trying to focus solutions for the Vermont workers. We heard that in New Hampshire, their legislature has declined to offer subsidies in New Hampshire, which means they would be looking at the Vermont plant as one of the few remaining places to sell chips, which would not be helpful for Vermont foresters. I failed to mention that Commissioner Snyder had spent a good deal of time before our committee, and I spoke to him this morning by phone, and he said I should go ahead and share this, that he is looking forward to the opportunity to work with the plant and its owners and with foresters to try and craft a way to send the Vermont subsidies for this plant in a way that provide Vermont foresters with employment for the long haul. And he has made that pledge. There's not a big market right now for softwood. There's not a good place to sell it. And Vermont, if we keep this open, would be the one of the remaining places. So that's the pickle that our neighbors have in the county that I represent, and up and through Caledonia and Essex, Orleans, and those places.
Thank you, Madam President. I guess I just hope that the committee and the whole Senate just think about other things that we could be doing to support the use. As the senator said, there isn't a market, very developed market for this low-grade wood right now, but there are things that we could do to support that market, specifically around advanced wood heating like the senator mentioned, the Capitol complex is heated with a wood heating system. The state has a lot of buildings heated with wood, but there's a lot of other opportunities that we could do, and we could do it in a way that supports our local forest products industry and those jobs and keeps forests as forests. And we can do in a way that, offsets fossil fuels, but also reduces overall particulates. So it's just something that to bring up as part of this discussion about that low-grade wood.
The question is, shall the Senate amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Finance? Are you ready for the question? The senator from Caledonia is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. As lead sponsor of the bill, I appreciate the hard work and the struggle that the Finance Committee undertook to get us a bill. I'm obviously disappointed with the shorter time frame because I think, as the previous senator indicated, the market for low-grade wood is very limited, and yet we have another program called Current Use where we have to do harvesting in order to keep land enrolled. And so we have one policy that supports forest land, and then we have another where the market and the use of that very wood is very limited. It's a challenging environment. I'm hopeful that that some of these strategies will bear fruit because the impact on the rural economy is very substantial. And so I do just want to indicate I appreciate the bill that came out. I think it gives us time to do some necessary work, and I will, with disappointment, but with thanks, support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Finance? Are you ready for the question? And if so, please unmute. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've amended the bill as recommended by the Committee on Finance. The question now is, shall the bill be read the third time? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of S1. We have a request to move over S10, and without objection, we will move over S10. We'll move on to S16. We have on the calendar for action S16, introduced on January 12th, 2021. It was referred to the Committee on Education, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the bill be amended as appears on pages 439 to 445 of today's calendar, and that when so amended, the bill ought to pass. The bill was then referred to the Committee on Appropriations, which reports that the recommendation of amendment of the Committee on Education be amended as set forth on pages 445 to 448 of today's calendar, and that when so amended, the bill ought to pass. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
S16, an act relating to the creation of the School Disciplinary Advisory Council.
Thank you. The senator from Rutland, Senator Hooker, is recognized for the report of the Committee on Education.
Thank you, Madam President. S16 is a strike-all to an act relating to the creation of School Discipline Advisory Council and renamed an act related to the creation of the Task Force on School Exclusion Reform. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the U.S. Department of Education Policy Statement on Expulsion and Suspension Policies in Early Childhood Settings, young students who are expelled or suspended are as much as 10 times more likely to drop out of high school, experience academic failure and grade retention, hold negative school attitudes, and face incarceration than those who are not. The U.S. Department of Ed's Office of Civil Rights has found that students of certain ethnic groups and students with disabilities are disciplined at higher rates than their peers, beginning in preschool. And a report on exclusionary discipline from the Vermont Agency of Education shows some similar results, although more data is necessary to have a complete understanding of school discipline practices throughout the state and what strategies are effective. I believe this is the impetus for this legislation. So going through the bill, Section 1 are the findings. Section 2 creates the task force on school exclusionary discipline reform and directs the task force to make recommendations to end suspensions and expulsions for all but the most serious student behavior and compile data regarding school discipline in Vermont's public and approved independent schools. The task force, appointed by the Secretary of Education, who shall seek racial diversity and balanced representation, shall include educators, school administrators, special educators, students, parents of students, school board members, and community groups working in the areas of racial justice and school discipline reform. The powers and duties of the task force are outlined in subsection D of this section and include a review of in-school services that are available to support students who would otherwise face exclusionary discipline. Recommend additional or more uniform services that should be available to students under 8 or other students who would otherwise face exclusion. Define the most serious behaviors. Identify best practice procedures to minimize law enforcement contacts and compile available data, the data collection processes, and additional data necessary to inform the work of the task force. Subsection E requires a report to the General Assembly from the task force on November 30th, 2021, and directs AOE to share the report with the broader education community in the state, including data specified in subdivision D6 of Section 2 of this Act, and to post the report on the website. And as you've indicated, Madam President, there will be an amendment offered by the senator from Bennington that will address additions to this section of the bill. Subsection F outlines the meeting information for the task force. Section 3 is the appropriation of $15,000 for reimbursements of expenses to the task force members eligible for reimbursement. Section 4 directs the Secretary of Education to incorporate the data collection and practices recommendations in subsection D6 of Section 2 of this Act and to the extent permitted by federal Family Educational and Privacy Rights Acts, and requires the collection of data as recommended beginning with the 2023-24 school year. Section 5 requires an annual report from AOE on January 15th of each year from 2025 to 2030 to the House and Senate Committees on Education on suspensions and expulsions of each Vermont public school and approved independent school in the prior year. Section 6 bans the expulsion of a student under 8, except when the student poses the threat of harm or danger to others in the school. Madam President, I want to say that I was rather surprised to learn that pre-K students are expelled 4 times more than older students, and students of colors and students with disabilities are disproportionately affected in this age group. Section 7 asks each school district on or before September 1st, 2021 to report to AOE the number of cases referred by the district or its staff to a state's attorney for truancy, the mitigation techniques used to engage the families prior to each referral, and the result of each referral. And requires that on or before December 15, 2021, AOE collate the reports from the school districts and report to the General Assembly. Section 8 is the effective date, which is on passage. Madam President, your Committee on Education heard from 19 witnesses, including Senator Sears, one of the sponsors of the bill, representatives from AOE, Vermont School Board Association, Vermont Independent School Associations, Voices for Children, the Vermont Human Rights Commission, the Ethnic Studies and Social Equity Working Group, and the Vermont Vermont Developmental Disabilities Council. The voting committee was 5-1-0, and we ask the Senate to concur. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Wyndham is recognized, Senator Ballin, for the report of the Committee on Appropriations.
Thank you, Madam President. Your Committee on Appropriations has reviewed the bill. If all 15 members attend all 6 meetings, then the total compensation and expenses would be an estimated $11,500, which is a de minimis amount and would not have a great impact on the state's budget. The support of the committee was 6-0-1. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Education? The senator from Bennington, Senator Campion, is recognized for the amendment.
Thank you, Madam President. Before I move on to the amendment, I just want to thank the lead sponsors on this, Senator Sears and Senator Rahm, as well as my committee members and everybody involved. This is an important bill, without a doubt, and it's one that I believe is going to really make a difference in the lives of children. One of the most interesting things I think I've heard since I've arrived in the Senate is when we talk about brain development in judiciary and how the brain really doesn't develop fully until we're well into our 20s. And now we're talking about and thinking about the brain of an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a high school student. As they're learning, as they're experiencing the world, we've realized from overwhelming testimony that exclusionary discipline practices during those years can greatly harm students. Not only are we talking about a school-to-prison pipeline, we're talking about lower grades, we're talking about more drug abuse, we're talking about less likelihood of going on to post-secondary education. So I want to thank my committee as well as the sponsors. With regard to the amendment, as you'll see, Senators Ballin and Hardy did point out that one of our intentions early on was to disaggregate the data, which would be very important for the commission to use to understand who's being suspended, who's being expelled. And so really that is what that does. The amendment that you see in today's calendar disaggregates that data. Data is still confidential. Only the members of AOE and the commission will have that data. But in order for the commission to do its best work and understand who is being excluded with regard to disciplinary practices, that data is important. I want to thank the Agency of Education for their support of the amendment, as well as the ACLU for helping us construct it. The committee vote on the amendment was 6-0-0.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Education as amended? Are you ready for the question? The senator from Rutland is recognized.
Obviously, Madam President, the Committee on Education does agree with this amendment, and we hope that the Senate.
The chair will briefly confer with the secretary. Thank you. Thank you. The question is, shall the report of the Committee on Education be amended as recommended by the senator from Bennington? We'll first take that up. Are you ready for the question? So please unmute. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've amended the report of the Committee on Education as recommended by the senator from Bennington. The question now is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Education as amended? Are you ready for the question? And if so, please unmute. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've amended the bill as recommended by the Committee on Education as amended. The question now is, shall the bill be read for the third time? Are you ready for the question? So please unmute. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of S16. We will now move to S20. We have on the calendar for action S20, introduced on January 13, 2021. It was referred to the Committee on Health and Welfare, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the bill be amended as appears on pages 448 to 455 of today's calendar, and that when so amended, the bill ought to pass. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
S20, an act relating to restrictions on fluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances and other chemicals of concern in consumer products.
The chair recognizes the senator from Chittenden, Senator Lyons, for the report of the Committee on Health and Welfare.
Thank you, Madam President. This bill may be familiar to some of you because we did look at a very similar bill last session and passed it over to the House. The Bennington experience with PFAS has really helped us understand how toxic chemicals in the environment can affect our health and welfare. These toxic chemicals can accumulate in the environment and then can lead to cancer, to other diseases when they then bioaccumulate in the human body. The persistence in the environment around us and indoors means that we may be exposed to these toxins on a daily basis. The work that we've done on many chemicals and chemicals of concern, including those in children's products, highlights the possibility that exposure to toxic chemicals can result in such things as cancer, neurodevelopmental disorders, or other debilitating conditions. S20 continues the work of your Senate Health and Welfare Committee, in this case to prevent exposure and harm that can result when one is exposed to PFAS, PFAS, BPA, phthalates. So as I said before, this is a bill that we have dealt with previously. We spent some time last year, both as a committee and in the Senate, to review the bill. We've made very few changes to what we had last year. The most significantly, we've changed the definition of chemicals to conform with what we see in other states that have similar legislation, to make the definitions biochemically accurate, and to ensure that we allow for alternative products that may relate to some of the chemicals as replacement for some of the chemicals. Madam President, we'll go through the bill, and I will try to explain clearly so that folks can understand the value of having this legislation that we are looking at. So Section 1, 1661 provides definitions for PFAS, and then also in 1662 begins the prohibition of a person, a municipality, or state agency from utilizing firefighting foam that contains intentionally added PFAS. Understanding that firefighters will be in close contact with this foam and can be exposed to these carcinogens, this is critically important. In addition, when the foam is released into the environment, it can seep into the groundwater and then become an ongoing problem, similar to what we had seen in Bennington. 1663 places a restriction on manufacture, sale, and distribution of Class B firefighting foam, which is the firefighting foam that contains PFAS. And just so you know that there are alternatives available for this firefighting foam. In fact, those alternatives are less expensive than the Class B PFAS foam. This section also provides for a recognition that there are federal guidelines and to ensure that what we're doing are within those federal guidelines. 1664 looks at the personal protective equipment that firefighters utilize and requires that a manufacturer or others selling firefighting equipment to any person, municipality, or state agency provide notice to the purchaser at the time of sale that the protective equipment contains PFAS. So this is a notice that would be required and would go into effect in July 2021, but would provide for a notice a year before this section actually goes into effect, which is July 2022. So there's a year for accommodation. This 1665 requires a manufacturer of prohibited Class B firefighting foam to notify persons that sell these products in Vermont that the provisions are in place, and that is the year ahead notice requirement. So once the bill goes into effect, notice would have to go out on July 21, and then by July 22, when the foam is no longer sold or manufactured in the state, folks would know about that. Penalties associated with this section are civil penalties under the Consumer Protection Act. I would just like to say, first of all, Madam President, I do, if you hear a roar in the background, I can't help that. That's our National Guard taking its daily run, so I can't apologize, but I will continue and persevere. PFAS, I just want to state for you that as we're removing the firefighting foam and removing PFAS from firefighter equipment, that this chemical can have significant health effects. It can weaken the immune system. It makes us susceptible to COVID-19. In fact, it's been demonstrated in recent studies that it reduces vaccine effectiveness for COVID and others. It also can cause cancer, including thyroid cancer and other problems. Section 2 of the bill deals with food packaging. So moving from firefighting foam and equipment to food packaging. We're looking at PFAS, phthalates, and bisphenols, which are all used in food packaging in different ways. So I'll talk about each one and give you maybe a little bit of understanding of how those chemicals are utilized. PFAS in packaging is used for nonstick surfaces to reduce surface tension in packages and in various food packages. And just to let you know that there are a number of fast food and other organizations that are no longer using deli wrappers or food packages, boxes that contain PFAS. So some of those are Panera, CVS Rite Aid, McDonald's, Amazon, Whole Foods, Taco Bell, Trader Joe's, and others are beginning to see the value in replacing the PFAS containers with alternatives. 1672 in the bill prohibits a manufacturer, supplier, distributor, or manufacturer from selling, offering for sale, or distributing for sale in Vermont a food package which contains PFAS in any amount. This chemical is significant in terms of health effects, as I've mentioned earlier. Therefore, this measure is being taken. But I will say at the end of these sections, you'll notice that the Department of Health is allowed to adopt rules that would regulate this whole section. So the next part of 1672 to 1673 allows for the department to adopt rules prohibiting a manufacturer, a supplier, or distributor around the promotional or distribution of a food package that contains bisphenols. So bisphenols, BPA, is the one you're most familiar with. These are chemicals that are hormone disruptors. They cause changes in sexual development. They can cause obesity, diabetes, reduced sperm count, cancers, cognitive and behavioral disorders, including ADHD, changes to reproductive organs. So the public health concern here around BPA in food packaging is significant. So the limitation on the use of bisphenols in food packaging can only happen if the Department of Health determines that a safer alternative is available. It can also only happen if the safer alternative also performs as well or better than bisphenols in a specific food package application or a component of an application for a package. So, and this is an area that's important to us in this state because we do have a company in our state, Westrock, that does produce alternative packaging. Instead of bisphenols, has a different surface adherent that allows for cardboard packaging. And I should mention that BPA is used in lining of cans like soup cans and others. It's also used in some other packaging, cardboard and other type of packaging. So this restriction would take BPA out of those packages, which, if the Department of Health determines that there is an alternative. So, and if an alternative is determined, then that packaging would be required only after 2 years. So there's time between the rulemaking, the determination of whether or not a package contains BPA, and then banning that package from the state. So there's time for the manufacturer, the distributors, to use up their inventory. The next part of 1672 deals with phthalates in packaging. Now, phthalates are another wonderful set of chemicals. Some are called phthalates the brain drain chemical because it leads to ADHD. It can cause a significant hormonal disruption, reproductive changes, testicular and prostate cancer, just to name a few, so has significant effects. Phthalates in packaging, as with bisphenols or with PFAS, these chemicals are not chemically bound into the package, but they are constituents that can leach out into the food that we consume. So that becomes a concern if those chemicals become part of the food that we're eating. So as with other sections, the phthalate section does not apply to the resale or resale of used products. And then it also, in 1673, requires a manufacturer to issue a certificate of compliance demonstrating that they are complying with this chapter and providing notice to the Department of Health and then working when required to remove the chemicals from the packaging. The next part of the bill, Section 3, deals with rugs and carpets. And this is really related to PFAS. This section of the bill goes into effect in July 23, so there will be time for consideration of inventory and other issues related to the use of PFAS in carpets. PFAS is, as I said before, it's a metabolic hormone disruptor, causes thyroid, cancer, and other problems. I will say that the number one exposure for infants and toddlers to PFAS is through carpeting. And so when that happens, there may be neurodevelopmental disorders that occur. It's a huge concern for us. I will say that the use of PFAS is now become much reduced in our carpeting manufacturing process, but also in our distribution and sales. So companies like Lowe's, Home Depot, Target, Walmart, and IKEA have all moved away from having carpets in their stores that have PFAS in them. So this section 1682 restricts the sale of carpets that have been treated with PFAS. Again, this section does not apply to the sale or resale of used products. Again, the Department of Health will be adopting rules in this area so that manufacturers, distributors, and retailers will know what's coming before the date of implementation in July 2023. Section 4 relates to ski wax. This is a section that was added into the bill that was not in the bill last year. And it comes to us from the ski wax industry as well as some professional ski associations. So the SWIX, those of you who are skiers will know SWIX, you'll know TOCO as a ski wax manufacturers. Also the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Association, the International Federation of Skiing, Nordic Q of Canada, all are removing wax containing PFAS from their markets and from their use. So it was actually the skiers who brought this to our attention, and I think this is an example, I think, of how much the awareness of chemicals in our environment and our public health has traveled. And actually, it's traveled now by Nordic and downhill and snowboard. So sorry, I couldn't resist that. This section prohibits the manufacturer, supplier, or distributor from manufacturing, selling, or offering for sale ski wax that contains PFAS intentionally added in any amount. Again, it does not apply to the sale or resale of used products. And the Department of Health, it may adopt rules necessary for the implementation, administration, and enforcement of the chapter. Finally, the Section 5, we add PFAS to the chemicals of high concern for children. That's in 1773, a different, not the same exact section of law that we've been looking at. This section goes into effect in July 2022, so there's a year before rules might be adopted or folks need to report the use of PFAS in children's products. I will have a proposal of amendment, Madam President, on this section tomorrow to ensure that the definitions that we're using in this section are consistent with the definitions that we have in our earlier sections for the chemicals involved. Finally, the effective dates, and I've tried to indicate along the way that the effective dates are between 1 year and 2 years out to allow for some adjustment by those who are manufacturing or selling in our state. Other states have gotten ahead of us in this area, but we are very hopeful that Vermont will again be joining those states to protect citizens and the environment from some of these toxic chemicals. Our committee heard from a long list of witnesses. We heard from the American Chemistry Council. We heard from 4 different folks from the American Chemistry Council. We heard from Bill Driscoll, the Associated Industries of Vermont, Jen Duggan of Conservation Law Foundation, Marcy Gallagher of the Vermont Public Interest Research Group, Andrew Hackman for the Juvenile Product Manufacturers Association, Stephen Hengis of the Polycarbonate BPA Global Group, that's also the American Chemical Council, Lauren Hurl of Vermont Conservation Voters, Mitch Hubert of the Firefighting Foam Coalition of the American Chemical Council. We heard from Tom Mallon, Compliance and Packaging Coatings for the Sherwin-Williams Company, Katie McLennan, our Office of Legislative Counsel, Sam Nicolai, Vice President for Casella Waste Management, Bradley Reed, President of the Professional Firefighters of Vermont, Aaron Segrist of the Retail and Grocers Association of Vermont, Sean Swearingen, Alliance for Telomere Chemistry, Stewardship, American Chemical Council, Martin Wolf, the Director of Product Sustainability and Authenticity from Seventh Generation. Mr. President, the vote in committee was 5-0-0. We ask for your favorable vote as well. Thank you, Madam President, with my apology.
Thank you. The question is, shall the Senate amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare? Are you ready for the question? The senator from Franklin is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. May I inquire of the reporter of the bill?
You may.
A question that the senator mentioned, the intent to add an amendment that would affect Section 5 of the bill. May I ask if that amendment would effectively take the definition contained in 1773, Section 67, and have it agree with the definition for PFAS contained in Section 1, subparagraph 1661(7).
Yes, Madam President, that is the intent.
Great. Thank you very much. And I congratulate the committee. I think it's excellent that we put these protections in that I think will tremendously benefit Vermonters. Thank you.
Thank you.
The senator from Addison is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in support of the bill, and I want to thank our colleagues down the hall in Health and Welfare. The Senate Natural Resources and Energy Committee often has a relationship to these same chemicals, but by the time we're addressing them, they're often in the solid waste stream and becoming problematic because they're spreading throughout the natural environment. And it's so much better to go upstream and prevent them from arriving in the state in the first place. So thank you to the committee for their years of work and tenacity on trying to limit our exposure to toxic chemicals.
The question is, shall the Senate amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare? Are you ready for the question? If so, please unmute. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've amended the bill as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare. The question now is, shall the bill be read the third time? Are you ready for the question? Please unmute. The senator from Chittenden is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. Quick question for the presenter, if I might inquire of her.
You may.
Thank you. Madam President will let me know if this is not a fair line of questioning, but I believe in the past similar bills have been vetoed, and I'm curious if we have any signal of support from the administration this time around.
I cannot speak for the administration, Madam President.
Okay. Thank you, Madam President. We'll hope for the best.
Thank you, Senator. Okay, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? And if so, please unmute. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of S20. The senator from Windham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. Pending announcements, I move that the Senate stand in adjournment until 11 a.m. Thursday, March 18th.
Thank you. The senator from Windham has moved that subject to any announcements, the Senate do adjourn until Thursday, March 18th at 11 a.m. Are there any announcements? The senator from Windham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. Senate Government Operations was scheduled to convene at 1:30, but I believe that I will ask us to be there at 2 o'clock, giving us a little break here. Thank you.
Thank you. The senator from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. Senate Finance was also scheduled for 1:30, and this is crunch week, so we will meet at the fall of the gavel.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Bennington, Senator Campion, is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. Senate Education will meet at 2:15.
Are there any additional announcements? The senior senator from Caledonia is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. Senate Appropriations will meet immediately after the fall of the gavel. Thank you.
The senator from Addison is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. Senate Natural Resources and Energy meets tomorrow morning starting at 9 a.m. Thank you.
And the senator from Windsor is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. The calendar notwithstanding, institutions will convene 10 minutes after the fall of the gavel.
Are there any additional announcements? The senator from Windham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. As we've heard from several senators, it is crunch time with crossover. I just want to remind senators, if you could, to a little bit more frequently check your email during the day. I know it's incredibly challenging. We're trying to coordinate individual meetings and phone calls, and I know it's very challenging not to just be able to pull you out of committee. So if you have a moment, just do a quick glance to make sure you're not missing a call or a Zoom. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you. Hearing no additional announcements, the senator from Windham has moved the Senate adjourn until Thursday, March 18 at 11 a.m. Are you ready for the question? And if so, please unmute. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the Senate stands adjourned until Thursday, March 18.